Couple things I need to say right up front. First of all, this is not a video slamming the Jehovah's Witnesses, persecuting the Jehovah's Witnesses. I have no interest in doing that. As a matter of fact, I can honestly say that I love the Jehovah's Witnesses. This is not even a video about religion. This is a video that is more about psychology. I also want to say that I have never been a Jehovah's Witness in my life. I have spent, however, several hundred hours studying the Watchtower Society very closely, and I have also spent some time studying some psychology books. So that's what this video is going to be about, more about psychology and how the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, which is the organization that runs the Jehovah's Witnesses, how this organization uses techniques in its writings in order to control and shape what the Jehovah's Witnesses do and think. So I'm going to try as hard as I can to make this video not boring, even though this is pretty heady stuff we're talking about here. I'll try to keep it going quick. All right, two books that I'm going to be using. One is both books are by Steve Hassan. This is a very popular book. Another book I'm going to be using is called Releasing the Bonds, also by Steve Hassan, Empowering People to Think for Themselves. Mr. Hassan he came up with this technique called the BITE control method, and BITE is an acronym for behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotional control. High control groups use these 4 different areas, and if you can control people in these 4 different areas, then you can control the people. Neither of these books, nor the BITE control method, were written for the Watchtower Society. But the Watchtower Society does use these techniques. So does groups such as Scientology, the Worldwide Church of God, 12 Tribes, the Moonies, International Churches of Christ. Not every single group uses every single technique, but we will find that the Watchtower does employ most of the techniques found in the BITE control method. So the first area we're going to look at of behavior control, there are 7 different categories and some subcategories. And then we have information control, also 7 categories and subcategories. Third area is thought control, 8 different categories for this one and subcategories. And then the last one, emotional control, 7 different categories, a lot of subcategories, and the Watchtower spends a lot of time using emotional control to control the witnesses. We will be taking our quotes from major publications by the Watchtower Society. Their #1 publication is the magazine called The Watchtower. Another magazine they produce is called Awake, and also the various books that have been published by the organization through the years. We'll be taking quotes and teachings from the Watchtower Society and see how they fit in the different categories of behavior, information, thought, and emotion control. If you're not familiar with the Watchtower Society, you'll need to be familiar with a couple of terms here. The leadership of the Watchtower Society is referred to in several different ways. If you see the word the Watchtower, or governing body, faithful and discreet slave, slave, or organization, all of these are talking about the leadership of the Jehovah's Witnesses. Some of the terms you may not be familiar with is the term apostate, which is used very frequently in the Watchtower magazines. Apostate specifically refers to anyone who used to be a Jehovah's Witness and has left the organization. And generally, it can kind of be used to refer to anybody who's against the organization. Worldly is a word that is used to describe anyone who is not a Jehovah's Witness. Another term you may not be familiar with is Christendom, which is used by the witnesses to describe mainstream Orthodox Christianity. All the different Christian religions are piled together into the term Christendom. All right, the first category, let's get going here. Behavior control, regulation of an individual's physical reality, where, how, and with whom the member lives and associates. We're going to look at the Watchtower magazine, February 15th, 1994. We must also be on guard against extended association with worldly people. Perhaps it is a neighbor, a school friend, a workmate, or a business associate. What are some of the dangers of such a friendship? So right there is an attempt to control who the witnesses are allowed to associate with. I also want you to understand that in the Watchtower magazine, it's not viewed by the witnesses as just some interesting reading or some advice. They are expected to follow whatever the Watchtower comes out with and whatever it says. If it's in the magazine, it's the rules for the organization and they have to follow it. Next category, what clothes, colors, hairstyles the person wears. We need to examine our response to the direction we receive from the slave class. That would be the leadership. Over the years, for example, we have received pointed direction on dress and grooming, entertainment, and improper use of the internet. Do we carefully heed this good counsel so that we are spiritually protected? And before we go any further, not just are we talking about what kind of entertainment we're allowed to view, but I also want you to notice how the use of the word we. We need to examine our response to the direction we receive from the slave class. Well, it's the slave class that is writing this. So they use the word we to make it seem like it's being written from the third person perspective, that the slave class is somehow, or the leadership is somehow other. But it's actually the leadership that is writing this. So in reality, this could be written as, you need to examine your response to the direction you receive from us, because that's in reality what it's saying. But they use the word we because it sounds better. Some other areas, these aren't particularly applicable to the witnesses, what food a person eats or drinks, how much sleep a person is able to have. Well, sometimes the witnesses are tired because of all the hours they put in. Financial dependence, they do dictate how you spend your finances a little bit. If there is any material giving to charities, for instance, it is because there is a need to salve the conscience, or because one's reputation is at stake. Well, it could also be because giving to charity is a nice thing to do, but the witnesses are discouraged from giving to, well, it's against the rules to give to any other group other than the Watchtower Society. Little or no time spent on leisure, entertainment, vacations. Some might reason that areas such as entertainment and dress and grooming are personal matters. For the dedicated Christian who cherishes his place in the congregation, though, personal preferences should not be the sole determining factor when making decisions. Major time commitment required for indoctrination sessions and group rituals. Witnesses have anywhere from 4 to 5 different meetings per week. That's a lot of meetings. When you're in the witnesses, you work. They put you to work and they expect you to be putting forth the hours, and you are expected to come to every single meeting. Need to ask permission for major decisions. Need to report thoughts, feelings, and activities to superiors. As this spiritual warfare advanced, those serving with Jehovah's organization were refreshed by continuing flashes of Bible understanding, and their numbers grew until, in 1938, as many as 50,769 reported kingdom service during an international testimony period. If you're not familiar with the witnesses, you may be wondering what reported kingdom service means. Well, here is a field service card. The witnesses have to fill out this card, turn it in. It has listed how many hours they put in going door to doors, how many booklets they place, how many books, how many magazines they place, how many return visits they have. That would be second or multiple time visits to a house, how many Bible studies they are conducting. So they do need to report what they are doing to their superiors. The witnesses receive positive rewards in terms of status. If you spend any time going into the door-to-door field service, you are a publisher. If you do a certain number of hours per month, you are considered a pioneer. And you can also be a ministerial servant, and this is someone who has different duties within the Kingdom Hall. Some of the negative things that they can experience, they can be thought of as being spiritually weak within the organization. You can be subject to public reproof, and this is if you're doing something wrong, you can be called out for it in public from the platform. There's a judicial committee hearing, which is a closed-door hearing where they talk to you about your wrongdoing. And the ultimate would be being disfellowshipped. This is being kicked out of the organization. This may not seem like that severe of a punishment. However, if you are removed from the Jehovah's Witnesses and you are a baptized Jehovah's Witness, you lose everything. Your family won't speak to you anymore. None of your friends in the congregation will speak to you anymore. you lose all your family, all of your friends, and you are thought of as being spiritually dead. Individualism discouraged. Groupthink prevails. Again, these are general for any kind of high control group, not specific to the witnesses. You could take any group that you are concerned about and compare them with this list to see if they have these characteristics. Individualism discouraged. Groupthink prevails. This characteristic of destructive groups can be most obviously demonstrated in a 1954 court case in which the Watchtower Society's legal counsel, Hayden Covington, was on the stand. The lawyer asked him, "A false prophecy was promulgated?" "I agree to that," says the Watchtower legal counsel. "It had to be accepted by Jehovah's Witnesses." "That is correct." "If a member of Jehovah's Witnesses took the view himself that the prophecy was wrong and said so, would he be disfellowshipped?" "Yes." Our purpose is to have unity. Unity at all costs? Unity at all costs. A unity based upon an enforced acceptance of a false prophecy? That is conceded to be true. And the person who expressed his view, as you say, that it was wrong and was disfellowshipped would be in breach of the covenant if he was baptized? That is correct. And as you said yesterday expressly, would be worthy of death? I think, would you say yes or no? I will answer yes, unhesitantly. Do you call that religion? It certainly is. Do you call it Christianity? I certainly do. Furthermore, on the subject of individualism discouraged, here's a quote from the Watchtower. "Thus the Bible is an organizational book and belongs to the Christian congregation as an organization, not to individuals, regardless of how sincerely they may believe they can interpret the Bible. For this reason, the Bible cannot be properly understood without Jehovah's visible organization in mind." Again, organization being the leadership. Rigid rules and regulations. Somebody who was a Jehovah's Witness created this list of 141 different rules that the Jehovah's Witnesses have to follow that really invades just about every aspect of their life. How the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society uses mind control, Part 2, Information Control. Number one technique in information control is the use of deception. Destructive groups also use deception to recruit new members. What makes this also insidious is that members often speak and act with the greatest sincerity because they have been subjected to the same mind control techniques that they use to recruit others. From Steve Hassan, Releasing the Bonds. During the recruitment process, destructive cults use deception. This article was given to me by a Jehovah's Witness. It is a 4-page article. We're just going to be looking at the first page of it. As you will see here, we have 2 Bible verses that are quoted right from the beginning. Now, do you notice any inconsistencies in these 2 Bible verses? You notice the first one, the version of the Bible is cited as the New International Version, and the second one, the Bible verse is not cited. There are a total of 64 verses that were cited in this entire article. Only the first one had the version cited, the New International Version. The New International Version is a very widely accepted version of the Bible. None of the other verses had the version identified with it. So what would one assume if the very first verse that was cited had the version cited and the other ones didn't? Well, you would assume that they were all from that same version. I went through all 63 of the other verses and looked them up, and none of the 63 of them are from the New International Version. They are all from the Watchtower Society's own Bible, the New World Translation. So what this does is it creates the impression that all of the verses are from the New International Version. There's no particular reason for them to cite Ecclesiastes 1:4 from the NIV as opposed to their own Bible. There can only be one explanation as to why the NIV was used and why it was cited in the first verse. To create the impression that all of the verses cited in the article were from the NIV when actually none of them were except for the first one. Now this is creating an impression other than something that is true, and that is deception. You see, we have several verses here, none of them have cited the version. I want to look at specifically one part at the bottom here. We can be sure that our Maker will not allow anything to stop him from carrying out his purpose for the earth. Psalm 95:6. The entire purpose of this article is to try to convince people that the earth will never be destroyed. With a statement of that kind of confidence, you would assume that the people who wrote it know what they were talking about, and especially given the fact that they even cite a Bible verse with it. We should be able to look up Psalm 95:6 and see that it clearly states how the earth will never be destroyed. We'll even look it up in their New World Translation. "O come in, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before Jehovah our Maker." There is absolutely nothing in that verse about the earth being spared from being destroyed. So what is going on here? Well, a closer look reveals that they quoted two words. They removed two words out of context of Psalm 95:6, surrounded it with 20 of their words, and then at the end of that sentence, then they cited the verse Psalm 95:6. It's a deception in order to create the impression that a Bible verse supports the sentence they just made, when in fact the sentence is not found in the Bible verse in any way, shape, or form. They took two words out of context and then cited a verse. They removed 88% of the words from that verse, yet still cited the verse. In the Watchtower writings, look for fragments of verses to be taken out of context in order to change the meaning. The primary purpose of a Bible study is to teach the truth of God's Word. A Bible study is what they call the sessions that they meet with new people in order to recruit them into the witnesses. It should also build in the student an appreciation for Jehovah's organization and make him aware of the vital need to become a part of it. The weekly Bible study should include instruction that will help students appreciate the organization and take advantage of provisions for their salvation. Take a few minutes each week to relate or describe something about the organization and how it functions. You can find helpful talking points in the November 1st, 1984 Watchtower. Use of deception, deliberately holding back information, distorting information to make it more acceptable, or outright lying. We must tell the truth to one who is entitled to know. But if one is not so entitled, we may be evasive. So in time of spiritual warfare, it is proper to misdirect the enemy by hiding the truth. It is done unselfishly. It does not harm anyone. On the contrary, it does much good. Here's another example. This is from Watchtower magazine. The quote is, "The Apostle Paul was spearheading the Christian missionary activity. He was also laying a foundation for a work that would be completed in our 20th century." This was written at a time that the Watchtower Society was predicting that Armageddon would happen before the end of the 20th century, and the world would end then. This is from the Watchtower, January 1st, 1989. The exact same Watchtower magazine was later put into a bound version. And let's read the exact quote from the bound version now. "The Apostle Paul was spearheading the Christian missionary activity. He was also laying a foundation for a work that would be completed in our day." This is also from the Watchtower, January 1st, 1989. Same magazine. You can see them compared side by side here, where they change the prediction of the world coming to an end in the 20th century and changed it to our day. Again, this is outright lying in order to deceive or cover up what they had done in the past as far as predicting the end of the world. From Steve Hassan, "Information is the fuel we use to keep our minds working properly. Deny a person the information he requires to make sound judgments, and he will be incapable of doing so. Access to non-cult sources of information is minimized or discouraged. Books, articles, newspapers, magazines, TV, radio. Well, in the Watchtower Society, it's not just discouraged, it is absolutely forbidden to read anything that is not written by the organization of a religious nature. It is forbidden to read anything that is not approved of by the organization. Many of the Jehovah's Witnesses get rid of their TVs. They don't subscribe to any magazines. They don't subscribe to any newspapers. They will not read any books that are forbidden by the organization. Bear in mind that our Heavenly Father has an appointed channel of communication, the faithful and discreet slave. That's the leadership. That slave has the responsibility to determine what information is made available to the household of faith, as well as the proper time for it to be dispensed. This spiritual food is available only through the theocratic organization. We should always look to God's appointed channel for reliable information, not to a network of internet users. This is from the Watchtower 1981. One of the non-approved sources of information that a witness is not allowed to read independently would be, strangely enough, the Bible itself. They say it is sufficient to read the Bible exclusively, either alone or in small groups at home. But strangely, through such Bible reading, they have reverted right back to the apostate doctrines that commentaries by Christendom's clergy were teaching 100 years ago. This is a very interesting statement by the society. First, they are saying that you should not read the Bible all by itself. You should read it through us. And then they put the words Bible reading in quotes. Now, what's the purpose of putting Bible reading in quotes? Well, it's to make it look like it's impossible or silly to even think that someone could read the Bible by itself, or as if the person wasn't really doing it. But strangely, through such Bible reading, they have reverted right back to the apostate doctrines that commentaries by Christendom's clergy were teaching 100 years ago. What they are saying in this statement is, if somebody reads the Bible all by themselves, they come to the conclusion that Christianity is correct. So this is why they don't want people to read the Bible all by themselves. This is a very important quote, and if you'll look at the fourth and final video in this series, right at the end, we will hear from one of the Watchtower's leaders giving a message on this very topic of how the witnesses should not read the Bible. Critical information is also forbidden to read. False religious propaganda from any source should be avoided like poison. Really, since our Lord has used the faithful and discreet slave to convey to us sayings of everlasting life, why should we ever want to look anywhere else? Former members. The witnesses are forbidden to speak to former members of the organization. Steve Hassan says this is the single most important aspect that you should look for in a destructive group. Most importantly, people are told to avoid contact with ex-members or critics. Those who could provide the most information are the ones to be especially shunned. Some individuals who were once part of the Christian congregation now attempt to mislead the sheep by speaking twisted things, half-truths, and outright lies. Indeed, no matter what apostates being anybody who's left the organization, no matter what apostates may say to the contrary, the real aim of intruders is to steal and slay and destroy. Of course, the real aim of the people who have left the organization is to try to help the people who are still in to understand that they are being deceived. And these are the people that have to be shunned. Members are kept so busy they don't have time to think and check things out. In the Jehovah's Witnesses, we've already talked in the first video about how busy the witnesses are kept. This is done on purpose, so they don't have time to study and to even think about the things that they are being taught. Compartmentalization of information, outsider versus insider doctrines. Recently, they've changed the magazines they have an inside version of the Watchtower magazine and a public version of the Watchtower magazine. This public version is the one that is handed out at your door. And in April of 2012, we have two different covers of Watchtower magazines for April 2012. The public gets this painted picture of a very, very handsome, very attractive Jesus with his hand outstretched to you. However, the witnesses inside get a cover where a Jehovah's Witness is doing field service work under very difficult conditions. Cults frequently claim they are being persecuted for their beliefs, but destructive groups change the truth to fit the needs of the situation. Information not freely accessible.
Jehovah's Witnesses, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I have a question about the New World Translation. I wonder if someone could answer for me.
Thank you. One moment, please.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yes, I have a question about the New World Translation. I wonder if someone could answer for me.
All right, hold please.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello? One moment, please.
Thank you. Yes, I have a question about the New World Translation. I wonder if someone can answer for me, please.
Oh, okay. How can we be of assistance?
Yeah, I was looking through the front of it here, and I just couldn't find the names of the members on the translation committee. I wonder if you could give me the list of those names.
They have requested to remain anonymous, and so their names are not provided.
Okay, and what's the reason that that information isn't accessible?
Their position was that the merits of the translation should speak for itself and not rest on the individuals that were involved, and also to draw more attention to the fact that it's the Word of God, not the product of men.
We'll pause right here for a moment. Now, of course, the real reason those names aren't released is because, as it was revealed in a court trial, not a single person on the Watchtower's translation committee had the ability to read, write, or interpret a single word of Greek or Hebrew. And can I ask one more question?
Sure.
I wonder if I could, I was looking for a financial statement for the Watchtower Society. Do you have one of those that I could, or direct me to where I could find one?
Let me see if you can hold on for a moment. You do realize we're a not-for-profit organization, though.
Right.
All right. Can you hold for just a moment?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm still here.
All right, to keep you holding. So,
Sorry.
we do not publish a financial statement for the Watchtower Society because of being a not-for-profit organization. It's not required by law, so we don't publish one. There's not one that's accessible. Nevertheless, we do publish an annual yearbook, and in the annual yearbook, there's only one statement that may give you something remotely close to what you're looking for. And that is how much money has been spent to support those who we consider as a special form of service. We call them special pioneers, missionaries, and traveling overseers. And on page 55 of that yearbook, it mentions that Jehovah's Witnesses spent over $173 million in caring for these ones in this work. I can direct you to the page where it actually says that, but if you just wanted a roundabout figure, then that's what it would say. But that's about the most we have that's of any financial representation of how the money is being spent on a worldwide scale.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time, sir.
Sure, you're welcome.
All right, thank you.
You take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Information varies at different levels and missions within the group. Here is a book that most Jehovah's Witnesses do not even know exists. This is produced by the Watchtower Society. It is called Shepherd the Flock of God. And this is a secret elders-only book on how to run the congregation. The individual Jehovah's Witnesses are not allowed to know that this book exists. They are not allowed to read this book. If you ask an elder about it, he will most likely lie and tell you that there is no such thing. Spying on other members is encouraged. Pairing up with a buddy system to monitor and control, reporting deviant thoughts, feelings, and actions to leadership, individual behavior is monitored by the whole group. It is certainly not easy to confess to others deeds that one feels ashamed of and to seek forgiveness. It takes inner strength. If he does not do this within a reasonable period of time, concern for the cleanliness of the congregation should move you to report the matter to the elders. Extensive use of information propaganda, newsletters, magazines, journals, audio tapes, videotapes, and other media. No other religious group on earth has need of publishing Bible study aids in more than 200 languages, since no other group is interested in reaching all peoples of the earth with one united message. Recently, the Watchtower Society started producing DVDs for children. In this particular video, it's teaching kids that playing with certain toys is a very dangerous thing. Here we have a representation of a demon or Satan that is holding the toy that the Jehovah's Witness child was playing with just a few minutes earlier. Misquotations, statements taken out of context from non-cult sources. Here's a booklet that the Watchtower Society put together in order to convince people that the Trinity is not the true doctrine of the Bible. Here's a quote from the Watchtower book, Should You Believe in the Trinity? The Encyclopedia Americana notes that the doctrine of the Trinity is considered to be beyond the grasp of human reason. This is from page 4. However, if you look into the actual quote from the Encyclopedia Americana, here's the entire sentence. The red is the part that the Watchtower Society deleted, and the black is the 6 words that they used. It is held that although the doctrine is beyond the grasp of human reason, it is, like many of the formulations of physical science, not contrary to reason, and may be apprehended, though it may not be comprehended, by the human mind. Ask yourself, did the Watchtower Society make an honest quotation of the Encyclopedia Americana in this situation? The Watchtower Society takes Bible verses out of context. The Watchtower Society routinely quotes all of their other sources out of context in order to change the meanings. Need for obedience and dependency. We need to obey the faithful and discreet slave to have Jehovah's approval. By word or action, may we never challenge the channel of communication that Jehovah is using today. On the contrary, we should cherish our privilege to cooperate with the slave class. And should we not strive to be obedient and submissive to those taking the lead in our local congregations? Where did we learn Bible truth in the first place? Would we know the way of truth if it had not been for the guidance from the organization? Really, can we get along without the direction of God's organization? No, we cannot.
Yeah, Dr. Jason Morrison, theologist again. I just want to say thank you for watching the videos, and I hope you got plenty of self-rediscovery and freedom out of it. If you watched it on YouTube, please share or like, maybe even comment. If you watched it on Facebook, like, comment, share. But most of all, get out and live. This isn't a rehearsal. You've got a one-off life. Don't let your loyalty and your faithfulness blind you to the life that you should be experiencing. Till the next video, thank you for watching, and bye for now.